can't rely on your opponent making a mistake as an offensive strategy.
Do you have any idea how offensive that is?
Also an NFL offensive lineman. Loves a good slugfest.
How does this hamper Styles' offensive attack as this match goes on?
That sudden impact offensive style.
Something offensive, no matter how offensive I may find you.
Yeah, I think the name of this operation is offensive.
Well, these rags he's wearing give off a stench that's offensive to the dignity of this tribunal.
Then I find it highly prejudicial, even constitutionally offensive, to keep me detained without bail.
Really, I find this a little offensive.
You don't find that offensive?
I'm Coach Hines, your offensive line coach.
Do you know how offensive that is to me?
After announcing the presence of offensive Soviet nuclear missiles 90 miles off American shores.
Georgia Tech is one of the top offensive teams in the country.
Well, I just find that word really offensive.
Profane or really offensive? Was there an offensive?
Your language is offensive.
Well, as you know, last night the Russians launched a new offensive against Army Group North Ukraine in the South Poland section.
China is on the offensive.
I don't think it's offensive.
Or else you swing into your mama's boy charm offensive and that can feel glib, so.
There's an opportunity here now for us to mount an offensive.
The most offensive assault on the human palate ever contrived.
In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
But it's really not that offensive, Sir Dennis.
Which will bring up Haywood, who leads the league in most offensive categories, including nose air.
His offensive line digs in.
The protests cement Mr. Barnum's reputation as a purveyor of the offensive and indecent.
The entire offensive line is here.
What type of offensive action?
The ship has no offensive capability.
Well, that wasn't offensive.
If we can hold it, we can break up the entire German offensive.
We'll see if their offensive line can hold.
Great offensive high-flying arsenal in her background.
Refrain from violent, offensive, assaultive, or harassing conduct, and to remain away from the complainant.
They were sure your unit would have the highest kill ratio of any in the whole goddamn offensive, and they were right, you did.
I think it's offensive too, and that's exactly what I said to Aaron.
They find it very offensive and very sexist.
You're an offensive coordinator.
There are no offensive weapons in Cuba.
It creates offensive Jewish stereotypes like in Der Stürmer.
It was really bugging me because I couldn't remember how many offensive boards I had in the championship.
The Russian offensive continues in the Moscow area.
There was this big offensive coming up, right?
How would I find that offensive?
You see, what is
Hilarious to some could be offensive to others.
I know you're playing a new offensive.
You say a lot of offensive things, and occasionally you are real funny.
Minimum offensive fire until I signal bomb has been neutralized.
But July, they were able to begin their own offensive.
And insofar as it concerns the president's trade deal with Great Britain, well, the First Son's charm offensive this week has helped his mother's campaign.
Because now there's talk of an imminent all-out enemy offensive.
That is incredibly offensive.
I find this a little offensive.
I find murder offensive, too.
All ships of any kind bound for Cuba, from whatever nation or port, will, if found to contain cargoes of offensive weapons, be turned back.
He was offensive?
And without wishing to say anything offensive to you, I must add that from what I've heard of the proclivities...
Obnoxious, offensive, but a genius.
How is that not offensive?
Men
the hell out
of
of my
weak
store.
character are offensive to the great mass of right-thinking American citizens.
It's offensive.
Extremely offensive ones, I have to say.
Offensive and indecent.
I think it's offensive.
As a boxer, it was offensive to me.
We force ourselves gradually to step away from an offensive posture.
offensive rebound, Flournoy, and he is down and hurt.
Yes, it's offensive that I have to be the smart one all the time.
It's offensive.
Bad.
Well, this will be the shortest offensive of all time.
The way I find that offensive.
That a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island.
He's responsible for the western flank of the upcoming Saigon offensive.
It's offensive to actual poor people.
Doesn't seem too offensive, as long as you're quiet.
Now, I know that it may be hard for some of you liberal-minded, good white folks to write such offensive material. Yet,
Nothing offensive.
Minimum offensive fire until I signal bomb has been neutralized.
Which of my teachings is offensive to Rome?
It is all against the wishes of God, therefore all equally offensive.
So I'm thinking there must be some simple way for you to make it up to Mrs. Moretto for your offensive behavior.
Best offensive line I've seen in years.
If we run out of depth charges, the offensive will have changed hands and we'd have to break contact to get away from his torpedoes.
Okay, that came off as kind of offensive.
Ridiculous and offensive question.
No.
I don't like to use this phrase because it's offensive to our kind, but you are a bad dog.
Offensive, yes.
Immediately offensive.
Is it possible for a sane man to perform offensive or foolish acts?
The British are about to launch a massive frontal offensive.
He called Vlad gay in quite an offensive fashion.
Offensive measures advised.
Wait! I must say that so far you seem to be conducting it in a rather peculiar and offensive manner.
This is a scientific report I've done on possible offensive psi applications, sir.
7th Air Force intelligence has been indicating the possibility of a North Vietnamese VC offensive.